Has anybody joined us online? On the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee McPherson, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can get you now.
Okay, good. They are tweaking it. We do have the sound people here, so. All right, the agenda. If no one objects, I'd like to, I don't think we need the negotiations update at this point. Anybody object to me taking that off? Motion to approve the agenda with the one deletion. Trustee Garrow, first vice McMillan. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of conflict of interest? Private session, one personnel and one contractual matter was discussed during private session. No recommendations have been brought forward. I need to note the declaration of conflict of interest. And one declaration of conflict of interest by Trustee McAllister. Approval of the minutes. For the Committee of the Whole meeting January 11th. Any errors or omissions?
Actually, I believe Bill McPherson's name was not put on as present. If you go into that. Could you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Was he present?
Yes. If you go further down into the minutes, you have. Or would like it.
Okay, so that'll be corrected. Any other errors or omissions? Motion to adopt the minutes. Trustee McCray, Trustee McAllister. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, a truly exciting evening meeting tonight with a number of great topics, and we're starting off with a tremendous opportunity and demonstration of work by our fine Chief Information Officer, Jeremy Hobbs. This is a big night for our information technology team, and I know our communities are very eager to hear all about it. The floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Chair, for that setup. It's been, just in reflecting upon this, it's been about almost 8 years now that I've been with the board as Chief Information Officer, and in that time we've accomplished quite a bit as an IT team, and I emphasize the word we, because we do have a great team rolling these things out. Put it in perspective, this year we're rolling out 3,000 new computers to students, which caps off a few cycles over the last few years that basically total up to about 10,000 new computers out in our schools for students. We've got wireless networks in our schools that are wide open to students so they can bring their own devices into the school and learn and work in really innovative ways, free from some of the constraints of sitting at a computer at the back of the classroom. Done all kinds of interesting things with the web, and a lot of that, I'm pleased to say, has been in part because of a strong partnership we've enjoyed with Microsoft Canada, and specifically you're probably well familiar with Bill Gates' commitment to education through his foundation, but that commitment trickles down to the education side of Microsoft, in that they make available to us best-in-class products at really unbelievable prices. Prices that are certainly, when I speak to my private sector colleagues, they're in disbelief at the advantages that we have as an education institution, and that really has allowed us to do a lot of really innovative things. So I'm pleased tonight really to welcome Shan McGrail and her team from Microsoft Canada because we're announcing two things tonight. First of all, we're announcing an alliance that will allow us to, I think, broaden the scope of our partnership to beyond just putting software on computers or on servers, and starting to look at how we can broaden the set of technology that is available to students in our schools, and also broaden the suite of technology skills that our students and our communities have access to. So this is really not just about what we're doing in the classroom, although that's an incredibly important part, but we really anticipate the potential for us to make a positive impact on our communities here in Eastern Ontario by making a whole new set of skill sets available. The second piece we're pleased to announce tonight is the first step, or the first tangible step in that alliance, which is the launch of a My UCDSB student email and collaboration system. And so this is a bit of a collaborative effort. As I said earlier, it's my pleasure right now to introduce Shan McGrail. She's Microsoft Canada's National Education Director, not to be confused with Director of Education, but responsible for all of educational sales across Canada, and she'll speak a little more about the Alliance. Shan?
Thank you very much, Jeremy. On behalf of Microsoft Canada and also my team, Michael Lynn and Karen Truians, who are also here with me tonight, I'm very excited with the work that we've been doing with Upper Canada and to announce this Education Alliance. The Education Alliance represents an opportunity to work together to transform the teaching and learning environment to benefit the students and the community. In Microsoft's work with education around the world, we talk and work quite closely with a variety of education leaders, and they tell us that three key things get in the way of really realizing the benefits of technology in education: strategic planning, IT infrastructure, technology skills. When we think about those obstacles, and then we also think about the priorities they've indicated to us being delivering world-class education, providing education to the underserved, and workforce preparedness. And we think about the commitment that Microsoft Canada makes to education, which is to help remove these barriers and look at how we can transform the teaching and learning environment. When we've talked to these educations around the globe, we know that 83% of them prioritize world-class education as a way to support economic growth and development. Through the strategic and creative use of technology and keeping the community needs in mind, Upper Canada District School Board represents leadership in removing these obstacles, focusing on these priorities, and enabling students, educators, and community success. Upper Canada represents an opportunity to work closely with a board that possesses strong IT leadership, a desire to innovate, and a focus on enhancing both the teaching and learning environment, as well as enabling broader economic growth throughout the region. With Microsoft's focus on creating technologies, services, and programs that are affordable, accessible, innovative, and scalable, our Education Alliance Agreement is really about a partnership framework aimed at working closely together to achieve common goals. If you think about the technology sector in Canada, and even throughout this recent economic downturn, and we think about in Microsoft what we call our partner ecosystem, and that involves all of the hardware, software developers, systems integrators, training, support, licensing partners who build their business on the Windows technologies. That represents about $12 to $15 billion in Canada alone. So when you think about these services, they're really based on knowledge and skills, and they're not necessarily bound by geography, which means people living in regions undergoing different economic environments in decline have the same opportunities to those living in larger urban centers. So to that end, Microsoft is investing in education programs that make software tools, curriculum, and certification available through local school systems in order to better prepare people in the region for entry into this knowledge-based economy and workforce. According to the Information Communication Technology Council, over the next 5 years, Canadian employers are going to be hiring an estimated 106,000 information, communication, and technology workers. And that's according to a report entitled Outlook for Human Resources in the ICT Labor Market for 2011 to 2016. So in addition, while the general unemployment rate in Canada is between 7 and 7.5%, if you look specifically at the ICT sector, the unemployment rate is between 3 and 3.5%, demonstrating how strongly in demand those types of skills are. And what Upper Canada is doing is working hard to set up students and the community with the skills that they need to be successful with these opportunities and meet the challenges in the future. Microsoft technologies represent industry standards, including things like the competencies around Office, which is a minimum requirement for many knowledge worker positions. Programs like Microsoft's Digital Literacy, a free online program with 30 hours of e-learning curriculum, help both students and teachers alike develop technology competencies to succeed in this knowledge-based economy. We've made significant investments worldwide to understand and enhance teaching and learning environments, whether it be through delivering education-ready technologies like Live at EDU, a component of my UCDSB, or through the development of rich library of resources and networks for teachers that help position effective use of technology in the classroom. Together we intend upon architecting a world-class learning environment for Upper Canada District School Board students. Microsoft places a premium on working in partnership with education to continue to help us shape our offerings and future programmatic investments. To that end, Upper Canada will participate in early development and testing of future technologies, like Windows 8, and provide us with the vital feedback that helps shape our education business going forward. But most importantly, Microsoft and Upper Canada share a desire to put the absolute best tools and resources at the disposal of students. We fundamentally believe in the power of education as a starting point for every student to realize his or her full potential.
Thank you. So what I'll do actually now perhaps is, as I mentioned earlier, the second component of our announcement tonight is the My UCDSB suite of services, which is basically an email collaboration service that's based on Microsoft's Live at EDU service. And this has been made available to us under the Microsoft Alliance Agreement. So what I'd like to do perhaps now is ask our Manager of Information Technology Services, David Myers, to come to the podium and perhaps give us a little bit of an overview of that with the support of our student trustee, Jacob Howe. I'm really pleased. This is, I think, the first time that David Myers has presented to board or committee of the whole. David is a longtime alumnus of Upper Canada IT, but a recent addition to the management ranks. He's also a Microsoft MVP, which is a global recognition of his technical competence, and really is my pleasure to hand off to him to introduce my UCDSB.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted to share a few thoughts on the services. So as Jeremy and Shanna alluded to, this is our kickoff for our set of My UCDSB services for students, and we really anticipate that this first set of services that are built on that solid foundation of Microsoft technologies will go to great lengths to provide improved communication channels within our schools and classrooms. And really with that solid technology base, our team was able to provide a number of improvements, such as distribution groups to classes that allow teachers to easily send email messages to their class without having to remember individual email addresses for students, and the kind of improvements around having the automation in place to have all of those things taken care of in an efficient way without putting that kind of additional task work on our teaching staff. So we look forward to seeing the benefits come out of this as we launch the system tomorrow. And I think that what I'd like to do is let one of our students share with you some of his thoughts on it, and I think you're familiar with who he is, so I'll just start a little video that's...
Hi guys, I'm Jacob Howe. We're here at the Athens District High School Library, and I'm the Upper Canada District School Board student trustee for this school year. Today we're going to be talking about the My UCDSB services. This is an online email service for students, and you're probably thinking like, oh, what do we need another email service for, right? But this is so much more than an email service. This service has what we call a friendly email address. So instead of having like your student number and then @mail or whatever, you have like, for example, mine would be jacob.howe at my.ucdsb.ca. One really cool aspect about this service is that you can sync it with your, you sync your email or your contacts with your iPod or smartphone, and you can access your email, you can get notifications, things like that right on your iPod. With the My UCDSB service, you can also easily email your friends, your teachers. There's a whole address book with all sorts of contact information, the emails for all the students. There's an instant messaging capability, so this is like exactly like MSN Messenger, and you can access it right through the service, so you don't have to download any software or anything like that. You just go your instant message thing and start a conversation. Another awesome feature about the My UCDSB services is the SkyDrive. The SkyDrive allows you access to online storage of up to 25 gigabytes of storage space, so you can store your homework, photos, anything you want. With the SkyDrive also comes your access to Microsoft programs such as Word and PowerPoint, where you can access these documents and projects online through the service, so that you don't need to download the software, and you can create, edit, and share any documents online right on your SkyDrive, so you don't need to use your flash drive to bring projects home from school to work on or take them to school, so it's really easy. The My UCDSB service is, well, it's amazing, and like I've had the chance to test it out and try it out, and it's really been awesome. There's so many things you can do with it, and it's making your online experience at school so much easier. So I encourage everybody to give it a try, use it, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to help you out so much.
Thank you, Jacob. And just further to that, I just wanted to let you know that as of tomorrow when we launch, when students first log into their computers and open up their internet browser, they're going to be going, right into their inbox in this new service, and bring, this video message from Jacob with the students as sort of our kickoff to that. So, thank you.
Back to me. Awesome. So does this mean, I hope I'm not stealing anybody's question here, does this mean that I'm not going to get this, your inbox is full message anymore?
Mr. Chair.
Unless I go to 26 gigabytes?
Mr. Chair, that's a message we reserved just for you.
I knew I was special.
Yes, you will still get it.
Okay. Trustee Swan?
Through you, Chair, is this available to all the students in the board, or only students at secondary school level?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the service is actually available to all students within the board, so it's automatically provisioned. So as soon as a student joins our board and gets entered, their name gets entered in our student information system, then I think a lot of the best work that our team has done is to provision an email address for them. They get the SkyDrive, they get access to all those Word elements in the cloud. Their name automatically gets added to their teacher's email distribution list for their class and for their school, so the principal and the teacher can email them and send meeting invitations to them easily, or say I want to give you a notification that there's a test on Friday. So that's automatically, and it's already provisioned for all our students.
Trustee Garrow?
For you, Chair. This is for all grades? Okay, I guess a question about through our tuition agreement, if this could be somewhat extended to those kids coming in as feeders to the system itself, not just wait until they get to the high school. I don't know if Microsoft has thought about that, but it's something that should be considered.
Mr. Chair, there's from Microsoft's standpoint, I'm sorry if I presume to speak for Shannon and her team, but that would be, I think, something that we were able to do. So we could take care of that. Just there's no cost for us to this service, so Microsoft has provided it to us at no cost. So that's just other than the staff cost of us doing all the integration work, and it's just really up to us about what other students we add onto it.
Okay, so you're going to do the work pro bono. That's excellent.
Absolutely.
It's a part of our relationship.
That's right.
26 years and counting.
Good.
Trustee Buckland?
Well, thank you, Chair. In reading Bill's book about what the foundation did, and looking at this, it looks like a tremendous amount of work. So do you see it moving out of Microsoft into a somewhat similar foundation set up to run privately by other people? Or will this continue to be under Microsoft's association?
Perhaps I could refer that question to Shan. Did you hear the question?
And to answer that, it's, the service, I would see, there's no indication it would move anywhere. It stays within Microsoft. It's operated by a very large team that's trained and very deep on security, privacy, operation of data centers to keep everything secure and up and running, which is very different than the way a foundation would run, as example by the Gates Foundation.
Trustee McMillan?
Just a comment. I think Upper Canada District School Board has proven themselves to be leaders in the area of IT throughout the province. And I know that we have set standards that other school boards definitely are looking at. And I see this as a huge step, even more in a positive direction. It's an excellent opportunity for our schools, for our school community. It's a win-win situation. But the huge winner in this is our students, and students through student engagement. And I think this is a powerful step forward, and I really congratulate all of you that have been involved in taking this step.
Trustee Cartner?
Through you, Chair, to Mr. Hobbs. What notification has gone out to the schools about this ahead of time? Like, I can just picture the students tomorrow morning opening up their email and saying, it's changed considerably. There's going to be panic unless something has been done in the schools to move them into this, especially in the younger grades. High school maybe not, but in the younger grades.
Mr. Chair, perhaps I can refer that question to the project manager from Upper Canada, Sean Dooley, because we do have a rather detailed communication plan that's already been in play for a couple of weeks. Maybe he can speak to the details if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. I'll do my best. Well, over the past couple of months, we've gone through the exercise of looking at the different areas that we need to communicate to, such as the administrators in the school, the teachers, even the office staff. So we've sent formal communications to them a number of times already. Unfortunately, it's difficult for us to communicate directly with students. That's why this service is going to be so valuable to us, because it provides us with the means to do that. We've obviously asked that the message be shared in the schools, and all schools, not just secondary but elementary. In the morning, when the default homepage is changed, there'll be a message from Jacob that you just seen that will kind of go over, this is what the service offers. There's a support site created with frequently asked questions and how-tos that will be available to them directly from the sites. There's also, we set up, for example, if they are using the existing email system, we've automated the process of any emails going to their old email account will automatically be forwarded to their new My UCDSB account. So really we've tried to cover all areas within communication and the transition to the new system, and we'll continue to do so over the coming weeks. Another example of that is every morning, Allison will be sending out tips of the day to all the students, arranging from creating a document on SkyDrive to setting up ActiveSync on your iPod. So there's a whole host of different processes that the students will go through as far as a learning curve, and this has probably been the biggest communication exercise that I've been involved in as a project manager. So we try to really focus on that.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. Just to go back a few steps from off the My UCDSB information, I wanted to talk about the technology programs that are going to be available for students. And indicate here that they will have its Microsoft IT Academy program provide opportunities for our students and teachers, resources to achieve industry-recognized credentials and certifications. Can you explore on that a little bit further for me?
Sure, Mr. Chair, but maybe perhaps what I could do is ask one of the Microsoft team they can give you probably some more details on the specifics of the of how the program works, if you wouldn't mind, maybe.
you. The IT Academy program provides all of Microsoft's official course curriculum, and it ranges, I mentioned very briefly in my introductory comments, that it starts with digital literacy. So there's a whole 30-hour curriculum around providing those initial base level and understanding of technology. From there, there's a whole set of curriculum around what we call the Microsoft Technology Associate, and that is the set of resources that teachers, students would have access to that would enable them to move towards technology associate certification. So they could study that material, they could then go write a test, and they would get an associate certification that would indicate that they have reached a certain level of competency in the Microsoft curriculum. From there, there's also more advanced materials available, which is the Microsoft Certified Professional. So there's a certified professional organization around the world. There are hundreds of thousands of Microsoft certified professionals, and that's an industry-recognized certification. If you went on to any of the job boards looking for technology types of roles, you would see that they ask for that type of certification. So all those materials are part of IT Academy, which now are available to all of Upper Canada school boards and students and teachers.
So, to put it into context for me then, I guess, if I were to do this on my own and attempt to become Microsoft certified just in one area, what would that cost me?
I'll give you an it depends answer, because it would depend on which of the programs you decided to follow. It would depend on how you wanted to do that. The materials are available online. They're also available through training centers. So it would be a little difficult for me to say.
So pick one area, and I'm going to do it online.
Well,
it doesn't have to be to the dollar.
Sure, and today the ability to do it online in that fashion is only available through schools like we've done with Upper Canada. So otherwise, you could go and buy all of the official course curriculum, which would probably cost you a couple of thousands of dollars depending on which course you wanted to specialize in. If you wanted to self-study, you buy the materials, do the self-study, then you could go and pay and write your certification. You could also go to a training center and take a couple of days or a week worth of training, which would cost anywhere from, on average, it's about $1,500 to $2,000 a day to take one of those types of training courses. So again, depending on which track you wanted to go down, you'd look at $1,000 to $2,000 a day for the sort of the deeper technical training at a training center, and then moving towards writing a certification exam.
And thank you for that. And I guess from an industry standard, is it what's the average age for someone to become Microsoft certified? Is it 17 or is it 27?
Well, it actually really depends. There was a story recently in the news where the youngest Microsoft certified professional, she, I believe, was 9 when she was certified. So it really depends on interest, aptitude, and how much effort people want to put into that. I have met, personally, one individual who was certified at 15. So again, it really depends on their student and their interest.
So thank you for that. I think it's the opportunity that we have for communication for students with my .UCDSB is great, but I think this is a resource that we're going to be able to offer our students within our communities, and you pointed that out earlier in your presentation, that our students are going to hit the world ready for work. We have an ability to offer them a program as a result of the partnership that would cost them thousands of dollars once they graduated, or if they were still in school. So I think, there are key individuals within our schools who are thriving and just thirsty for this type of information and knowledge, and for them to do it on their own is just so cost prohibitive. And now we're going to be able to give an opportunity for our students to have a competitive advantage within Eastern Ontario or within the province or within the country by offering this service. So, I think it's a great thing for us. I think it's something we need to be proud of, and this is the kind of stuff that we need to make sure that everyone in our community knows about, because this sets us apart from everybody else. We've talked in the past about being the board by which other boards are measured, whether you like that statement or not. This truly is something that puts us on the map and allows us to be a board by which others are measured. So thank you to Microsoft and Jeremy for this. Thank you.
Trustee McAllister?
As I understand it, this is a communication tool. Could you comment on what the teaching component is and how, for example, it can be used in e-learning?
So if we're speaking specifically about the email service, essentially, I can see there being a number of ways where you could, you start looking at these things and rather than dreaming up ways or excuses for people to use email, we're looking more at how does this match up against an existing need that's probably unfilled, right? So one of the things that jumped out at us from a practical standpoint, not necessarily on the learning front, but we're dealing with a grade, a transition in some communities from 9 to 12 high schools to 7 to 12 high schools, and yet really the principals of, for example, the grade 9 to 12 high schools have no means of easily connecting with the grade 7 and 8 kids who might be coming into their school to talk to them about what's going on, what are the possibilities, really no way of mass communicating with students in that realm, and this provides that opportunity. So that's an example of a situation where you might use it from more of an administrative perspective. But I think one of the things that really occurred to us after we got going was we really have no means of, on a large scale, communicating directly with students, about whatever the message happens to be. So that was something that caught us by surprise. With respect to my daughter's in one of our schools, as an example, and one of the things that I find she finds difficult perhaps is carting around the agenda all the time, right? The paper agenda. And it seems that she's always forgetting to write things in it, or the teacher's having to sign off. And in this kind of system, the kids have the same kind of calendar that you and I have. So really there's nothing to stop the teacher from sending all the kids in the class a calendar invitation saying test on Friday. The kids all accept it. If the kids happen to have the good fortune to have a mobile device, and they can sync it with that, or they can organize, they have some organizational tools to help themselves out. And then the other part of it, I think, is that if you're communicating as someone who's taught an e-learning course in the past, one of the challenges was you either have to manually provide all the students an email address because some of the communication happens in that email channel. So that means as a teacher, I have to get my class list, I have to go through the account creation process, or I have to coach the students to go through the account creation process themselves. They're picking, jeremy.hobbs2182owl@google.com or gmail.com, and it becomes hard to keep track of what their email addresses are, and that administrative overhead sort of contributes to some of the friction in getting a course smoothly off the ground. So one of the things I think the value we can play in here is that's just done for you. So as a teacher, when I show up on the start of school for the first day, that I don't have to think about what my kids' email addresses are, or if they have accounts, or like going around and collecting what all their email addresses are so I can create a list, so I can get to work right away. As a technology person myself, I harbor a little healthy skepticism about the role that technology plays directly in learning. My personal take on it is that it provides support around the learning, right? So facilitating the engagement process, facilitating the connection of people to each other, and the sharing of information to each other. So, I would say it would play a supporting role, and the fact that it's done in such a way that is so usable, I think, for teachers and students is going to take a lot of the friction out of the system, right? So, that would be my response.
Trustee McCray?
Through you, Brett Peterson. In terms of protocol for using the system, has there been something set up for that? Could that become a challenge? Do you have, once this takes place, will there be kind of a protocol that the students, things that they are allowed to use the system for and things that they aren't allowed to use the system for, or is it just wide open?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the system is, I guess, wide open to the extent that the kids can pretty much email anyone they want within the school or beyond the school. It's closed to the extent that we have a much, I think, greater degree of visibility through some of the administrative tools that are available to us than we might otherwise if kids were at a service using an email service that wasn't sponsored by the UCDSB. So, as an example, if a student sends a nasty email to another student in the class, then I think what would happen is we don't have special rules pertaining to email. I think that those would be superseded by all the safe schools rules and the character education that we have in place. It would be our hope then that kind of issue will be dealt with as a nasty note would be. It's really no different. It may be a little bit easier, and we may be embarking on a little period of learning, right, where people stumble into those gaps. But I think it's a really compelling opportunity for us to strike a good balance between a safe environment that isn't so safe that it's claustrophobic for the kids, and something that is obviously inauthentic to them, right? I think it's a usable service, and we're going to have probably some steps to learn, but I think it strikes a very good balance between the openness and the kind of artificial closeness you get out of some other potential services.
Trustee Swan?
I'm wondering, could a student potentially, through you, Chair, set up a Facebook account with this email?
Sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
And our staff also, all Operative Canada District School Board staff going to have access to this?
Mr. Chair, basically what we're running now is a system that exists in two worlds. So the student email service is what we call a cloud-based service. So it's out there somewhere, and we don't have any servers on site. We haven't bought any software to install it, and we still retain for staff our own internal on-premise email system. And some of the most interesting work for geeks like me is that from a student's perspective or a teacher's perspective, they don't really need to know where the servers lie. All they know is that the two systems are integrated, and for all intents and purposes, they are, they could be in the same building. Now, that being said, I think what's going to happen likely, and it's already going to happen with Superintendent Patterson, elbowed me and said, I want that SkyDrive. So I think what you'll see happen is the students are a little bit out of the gate early, I think, on some of the additional opportunities that this technology involves, and then over time what you'll see happen probably is our staff will migrate to a similar system.
Because I was wondering about the Microsoft certified training that would really benefit our staff for no cost to the board.
Mr. Chair, yes, they would have access to that, yeah. The teaching staff, yeah.
Which is why I'm going to continue to get my "your mailbox is full" message for the time being.
We'll turn that off.
Get on that. You promised that before. Trustee Karkner.
I think this is a marvelous move forward in the IT world. My only concern might be for those students that don't have access to computer systems in their homes. And they are less and less, but there are still students without access. I know the schools have access for them, but if you're talking about communications between parents and teachers about sending a notice home about a test, the child without that computer at home will not have access to that.
Who else? Trustee McAllister.
I have a question for Jeremy. What are the reciprocal obligations on the Upper Canada District School Board in this relationship with Microsoft?
Mr. Chair, that's a good question. I think, I'm not sure the terminology that Ms. McGrail used to describe the relationship, but it's really more of a informal partnership framework. So we really don't have necessarily specific obligations other than you would, I think, treat it more as a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent where we agree that we want to go look at the applications of these various kinds of programs to the education environment. So, I think what we've demonstrated to Microsoft is that we're a school board that's fairly willing to move relatively rapidly and aggressively when we see an opportunity to innovate or to provide services at scale. And so that also, I think, provides them an opportunity to take something like the IT Academy and say, can we actually demonstrate in a community that needs it, that these kinds of skills, can we actually demonstrate that it makes an impact? So I think the commitment on our part will be to say, it's not just about putting these opportunities passively out there and hoping somebody grabs onto it, but really putting some effort from our perspective into saying, how can we help these things take root in schools, and then can we actually put some measures against it to determine whether or not we're having the desired effect. So, it's less of a contractual obligation and more of a kind of a working arrangement.
Thank you.
All right, I have sorry, go ahead, Trustee McCray.
I have one more question. There was mention of testing Microsoft 8, is that what I heard? And so what's the idea or what are you proposing in regards to that? Like, are we going to do it with, certain schools, or it's going to be across the board, or how do you see that rolling out?
Mr. Chair, I might field this one until I get out of my comfort zone, and I might turn it over to Mr. Myers then. As an example, we, as part of the Alliance, one of the things that we expressed interest in is trying to get out of waiting until the product is released to public, or to start figuring out how it fits in our environment and what the potential implications could be and what the potential benefits could be. So, as an example, we are doing some testing with Windows 8, for example. We've been selected for the Rapid Deployment Program, and it's really less around, we're actually been selected to test some rather it might be some rather arcane technology components of it to you, but it's really an exemplar of, I think, what you see happening for us is, the techies in our environment, we are really interested in testing out the technology, but we're really especially interested in figuring out how well it works in the environment of a classroom, right? So that's just an example of, we're testing out this, in the Rapid Deployment Program, this thing called Branch Cache, which has the potential to help us optimize our network utilization a little bit. And so what you'll see is some things that are more, as part of the Alliance, opportunities that are tailored specifically towards students, like the IT Academy or DreamSpark, and you'll see other opportunities that, the students will see Windows 8, but it may be more tailored towards the specifics of that investigation, maybe more tailored towards an IT professional.
Yes, just to expand on that, as part of the investment that Microsoft's making in that type of engagement, some of our technologist staff are able to be provided with in-depth advanced technical training around the new product, which will carry over to other benefits to the organization, as well as the purpose of the study that we're looking at in this particular area has implications to provide better performance of our existing network connectivity from schools back to the board office, and can translate into tangible benefits for improved access for students at the schools in our system.
So does that mean we can see a demonstration of Metro soon?
I think Shane said yes back there.
That's good. I have a question. I understand that we're going to get access to a broad range of Microsoft products, software products, are we, through this? So if I lift off some, can you tell me whether we do get access to these?
I would, Mr. Chair, defer that question, or refer that question, I should more properly say, back to Mr. Myers and perhaps some of the Microsoft team.
All right. Let's start with Express.
So, in terms of access to software, as part of our EES agreement that's outlined in the Alliance agreement, we are able to have a much more rapid deployment of Windows 7 and Office 2010, because the terms of that agreement made it much more affordable for us to have that software, whereas before we may have gone through an iteration of computer purchases where with one computer purchase we would buy Office 2007, the next computer purchase for a third of our fleet that we're replacing, we'd buy Office 2010. We'd have a situation with different versions of software in the same classroom. This program has allowed us to put the same version of software on all of the machines, and really let us not be held back by the licensing costs, but really just by our ability to provide the sort of the hardware investment in the classrooms to leverage it. In terms of other specific applications like Expression, through programs like the DreamSpark initiative that provide access to a variety of software titles for the kind of applications within science, technology, math, and programs like that we have in our schools. That's providing additional software that we didn't have before the agreement.
So yes to Expression.
Yes to Expression.
So students will get access to things like OneNote then?
Yes.
Visio?
Yes.
Age of Empires?
Perhaps through the game development program that they have, yes.
I thought I'd sneak that one in. Any other questions? All right, Director, you want to say something?
I'm just happy the Wizards never felt so good.
Do you understand any of that?
I thought it was great.
Did you understand any of that?
I thought it was great.
All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Microsoft team. Thank you, our technology team, for coming out and helping us with that. Jeremy, you want to say something before I wrap it up?
Just a quick note of thanks to a lot of our team. I don't know if they're back there still because they're actually working tonight. Sean Dooley, our project manager.
Can they stand up?
He's already been up.
Yeah.
Is anyone else back there, Sean?
Yes.
Barb Fraser is our Help Zone support specialist. Allison Grange is in there. Allison Grange has been helping us with our communication plan. Todd Lamotte, he has the best acronyms ever. But Todd has been instrumental in some of the behind-the-scenes work on this one. Jim Guerin as well, Jackie Kupras, and Radu Popa have all been enormous resources on this. And I'd just like to special thanks to Jacob. We've kind of had the kind of revelation halfway through this that really we're putting out a service for students. What better way to kick it off and welcome students than another student, specifically the student trustee. And when I saw his video, I don't know how many of you remember that old Apple commercial with the PC guy and the Mac guy. I felt like the PC guy. Looking at Jacob. So anyway, thank you very much.
All right. New pocket protectors for everyone.
All right, thanks again, everybody, and thank you, Jeremy, for your work on this. Okay, we move on to another related item, draft policy 301, social media, and invite Vice Principal of North Dundas, Derek Cole, to come up and talk to us about this.
Good evening. It's truly an honor to be able to present to everybody here this evening. I'm thrilled to be able to tell you that we have a draft working policy of the social media policy that we've undertaken to explore. The process started approximately a little under 2 years ago, and I know that sounds like a long time, but things have changed exponentially, even in our own understanding of social media within those 2 years. So we thought about this a great deal. We've had ongoing meetings virtually through various technologies using Skype, Google+, Hangouts, and meeting face-to-face for the last approximately under 2 years. I have only 4 slides to share with you tonight because I know that if I go over that, it might cost me, and I don't have to pay the tax this way.
Cost you, it's something for the foundation to help kids out.
Absolutely.
Chair of the board scaring people off.
I wanted to start out with this image of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I think that it's the new reality and really the undeniable cultural change that we've experienced as a result of these new social media and Web 2.0 technologies is apparent, and that's obvious when you pick up a newspaper and you read about the events globally that are taking place and the power that people are using these new tools to get across their point is truly remarkable. Even today, reflecting on Wayne Hulley, I know that many of us were there today. And when Wayne talked about today, he spoke about the new model of education, where students are asking questions and seeking answers. I couldn't think of a better way to tie that sentiment into social media, because really, I want to couple that with a thought from Amber MacArthur,
who is a Web 2.0 new media specialist for City TV, tech writer for the Globe and Mail. We had the good fortune of bringing her to the Upper Canada District School Board and working with our social media group about a year ago, and she summarized it nicely. I think parents and teachers will recognize the sentiment in her summary, that young people today want to interact with real people. They want a forum to be able to share, and they also won't take no for an answer. So coupling that with Holly's thoughts today, I think tie into social media really, really well. And we can speak to the fact that in terms of the learning, really when we look at those tools and we involve the education aspect, we have what I would call a persistent learning environment. You know, that students they're learning all the time, whether we consider that or not, on personal devices, on computers, iPads, iPod touches. The use of social media also supports collaboration. It's relevant and it's highly engaging to our youth today. And there are several examples across our school board of schools that are using these tools already. And I'm going to just say approximately 20 schools or more are using a number of these specific tools already. The project is in complete alignment with the UCDSB strategic plan. This is Crew Charter number 40, Groundswell, Marketing, Branding, and Communication. The charter is co-chaired by Terry Simser of the Communications Department, myself. As I said, the committee formed approximately 2 years ago, and we had the good fortune of membership comprised of Greg Petersma, Stephanie Reddock, Craig Beckett, Paul Murray, Phil Dawes, Ewan McIntosh, Allison Grange, Mark Calder, and Director Thomas attending more recently. We looked at many examples of social media policies, and we believe that we have taken an approach that reflects the value that the UCDSB recognizes in using social media along with and in combination with all other forms of communication. So it's my pleasure to be able to share with you the draft social media policy. And I realize it's small, so I'm going to read it to you. I don't normally read off slides, but the draft social media policy reads, "It is the policy of the Upper Canada District School Board to encourage clear and effective communication by all trustees, staff, students, and representatives using a variety of accepted tools, including social media. Use of social media must, like all other forms of communication, meet tests of credibility, privacy, authority, and accountability."
Thank you. Comments, questions? Trustee McAllister?
Is there a need for a procedure to accompany this policy?
Go ahead.
Through the chair? There is, and the committee is working on an FAQ document right now, and so a frequently asked question document, as well as procedures that will outline who to contact at the board level in the communications department with respect to how to set up a page to represent the school. So that is in development.
First Vice McMillan?
Through you, Chair, you had mentioned there are 20 schools right now that are on board using this highly effective form of communication, and for other reasons, obviously. What do you see as some of the obstacles preventing the other schools from getting on board?
Through the chair. So that's a really good question. It's my hope and the hope of the committee that this document will provide the foundation for removing most of those hurdles in terms of the progressiveness and acceptance of these tools by the board through a statement like this. I think that will go a long way to support schools in becoming users of these technologies, and also getting back to the previous question as well, when we have the procedures and FAQ documents in place, I think that will provide the how to, that will also go a long way to solving those questions.
If I could add, I think that's another aspect that will encourage and more and more schools to use these tools. We'll be seeing how effective it is for other schools and how they are making it work. So if you have a school that is using Twitter or Facebook, having those as ambassadors championing how it can work, and showing the effectiveness, showing the community's buy-in is really powerful. So I imagine that'll, 20 will become 30, but at some point we're going to hit a tipping point, and it'll be almost overnight. We'll see rapid adoption. Student Trustee Howe?
I just want to say that social media is a big part of everybody's life, including, especially kids in our school system. And I know I appreciate, and I know pretty much every student out there is going to appreciate that the board is actually looking into and considering the usefulness and effect of social media in our schools. I think a lot of people don't realize just how useful a lot of this is. Like, I know, for example, my dad, he's an engineer, and he's always doing, trying to learn more stuff, and so he goes on YouTube, and you can actually, he finds lectures from MIT, math lectures that he watches all the time, and there's just so much valuable stuff to education, especially. I mean, because you can go on there and you can learn about, you have trouble with your math homework, go on YouTube, find a video that explains it to you, and it's just, there's so many things that social media can do for us. I'm just really happy that this is, the board's considering all of this.
Thank you. Student Trustee Howe? Any other comments? Trustee McCray?
Yes, through you, Chair. How will we go about monitoring and enforcing this policy? In terms of things like ethics, transparency, those types of things, has there been a thought given to that, like a strategy in terms of our communication strategy, how we will deal with that?
Sure, I can pick up and start with that. The committee, we went through this, as Mr. Cole suggested, through this, took us a while, and at one point we had a very long and detailed policy with all kinds of statements and, dealing with, and then all of a sudden we stood around and realized that everything that we were trying to write into this policy already had a rule. There are already expectations for communication. And so the very same way that we will check on the appropriateness of verbal communication, telephone communication, or written communication will be used to do this. So if somebody reports a written communication that's inappropriate, then it will be handled very much the same way as if somebody says, I see a post on Facebook that's inappropriate, or a video that's inappropriate. So I think that's sort of the aha moment that we got to, is that we don't really need a lot of rules for this. The rules are in place. And as long as we just get over the fact that it's on a computer or, in bits and on the internet, will be covered through the various rules that you have. David, do you want to speak a little bit to what's already in effect for teachers?
The Ontario College of Teachers and our board do policies on the conduct and behavior of our staff. And because you're online or in social media or on Facebook or using the Twitter, that does not change. And because perhaps you're even using a pseudonym or whatever type of thing, if you're acting inappropriately, whether you were standing in a mall, in an arena, at a board meeting, in a classroom, in a school, the fact that you're going on here, as Jeremy said earlier, may in fact be easier to track someone's behavior who chooses to act in an unethical or moral fashion. And so what we really tried to do is go back to, if you're a teacher and you're at the arena on Friday night watching the Cornwall Colts play, and you saw 3 of your kids inappropriately behaving, or you wouldn't say, I'm off the clock, he'd probably walk over and say, come on, guys, we're better than this, let's go, come on. And it's the same thing would be if a teacher was on Facebook monitoring her class, and she saw a couple of kids who were acting inappropriate to another student. To choose them to say, well, I'm sort of just here, and not to intervene would be inappropriate. And so what we were saying is what the practical laws that we have that govern us in all of our behavior should be the same things that go here. They're no different. In fact, as Jeremy said, and I'll repeat, I think in some ways it's almost easier to track someone's misconduct in this particular format because it could be there forever.
Trustee McAllister?
My question has been answered, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? So anybody opposed to forwarding this to board for approval? Okay, all right, thanks, Mr. Cole. We'll forward this to the board meeting, what is it, February something, 22nd. Thank you. All right, we'll now move on to the Occupational Health and Safety Annual Report 2010-2011, and invite Occupation Health and Safety Manager John O'Connor to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me here tonight. I just want to take the next few minutes to update you on our occupational health and safety performance for the 2010-2011 school year. We've had some challenges over the past year, and I just want to discuss where we are at this point. Before I get into the actual statistics, it's important for everyone to know that occupational health and safety is really a team effort. It can't just be the occupational health and safety department out there doing occupational health and safety for teachers, EAs, custodians, or principals. It has to be a team effort between all parties. And the Occupational Health and Safety Act is very specific about roles and responsibilities for every workplace party. So, for example, the employer, the school board, has some pretty tall orders and responsibilities under the Act they must fulfill. It's a legal requirement, but at the end of the day, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a safe workplace for your staff and for your students. Now, often I think about, how do we, as the Occupational Health and Safety Department, contribute to the board's 90% goal? And it's pretty simple. If staff are safe at school, staff are healthy at school, they're going to be happy at school. They're going to be happy educating our students. The spin-off benefits for our students is if it's safe for staff, we're making the environment also safe for students. So, it's everybody's responsibility for safety in the workplace, and that goes right down to our frontline staff, our teachers, our EAs, our custodians, office administrators, principals, whoever you are in the organization, you have a responsibility for occupational health and safety. I will say that we do have a very good working relationship with our Joint Health and Safety Committee that represents the board. So we have members from our secondary teachers, our elementary teachers, QP. We all work very well together for the common good of the board, preventing accident, incidents, and injury to the staff. This report deals with occupational health and safety. We don't get into any student safety aspects. As I mentioned before, it takes teamwork. I work very closely with our partners in HR. The success we have as a board is not about John O'Connor, it's about everybody in the board. And we have a really good working relationship with human resources and our rehabilitation coordinators, who play a very key role in our occupational health and safety program as far as dealing with injured workers and getting injured workers back to work. So we have a very good relationship, work very closely with Jeannie Atkins, who's our rehabilitation coordinator, as well as Terry McPherson. So once again, you'll see a common theme that it's not just about occupational health and safety department, it's about all departments working together. What some people are not aware of, or may not be aware of, is what we pay as a board, as a Schedule II employer for accidents. Any cost related to an accident does come directly from the board. Okay, because where we sit as a Schedule II employer, we foot the bill for everything. So a teacher slips and falls at work, they go to the hospital to seek medical treatment. That is from the board's budget. That is not from any other fund out there. That comes directly from our pocket. We can see the benefits of having a strong occupational health and safety program. I mean, you can see the different costs. So the direct cost for an accident would be a WSIB payments, medical payments, property damage, indirect costs. So if we have to replace that teacher who's off ill now, if she broke her leg and she is not at work, we do have to replace that teacher. Overtime, retraining. Look at our quality of education. I like to use the example of an EA who has a really strong connection with Johnny who's having difficulty, and all of a sudden that one consistent factor in that student's life or education is now not a part of that student's education. There could be some negative impact on the success of that student. So there's lots of good reasons for it. So what you have in front of you here is the average cost per claim that we have with the school board. Now these are WSIB claims. This is not every single incident we have in the board. These are incidents that are reported or reportable to WSIB. The stats you're getting tonight are not coming from our internal statistics. These statistics are provided by School Boards Cooperative that represents approximately 62 school boards in Ontario. The stats you're seeing tonight is a comparison between Upper Canada and other large school boards. We are still deemed a large school board by School Boards Cooperative terms. So the Peel District School Board, Toronto District School Board, we're being compared to all those other large school boards. So the one way they do the comparison is they look at all the large school boards and they compare it to your $100 of payroll. So for example, in 2009 and 2010, we had a remarkable year. We received some strong support from School Boards Cooperative and a good recommendation that we were one of the first boards in Ontario to get our costs below 10 cents per claim, which is quite remarkable. You'll see in 2010 and 2011, our average cost per WSIB claim was 12 cents. Just to put it in perspective, if we were in Schedule 1, the rate right now is 78 cents per $100 of payroll. So there's a huge cost savings for us to stay in Schedule 2 right now. I've done the math in the past, and you're talking $750,000 at some point. Okay, so there's a huge amount of savings for us to be in Schedule 1. You look at the provincial average in 2009 and 2010, it was 20 cents, and 2010 and 2011 was 30 cents. This slide reflects the good work of our partners in HR, our rehabilitation coordinators at getting people back to work. Okay, there's good evidence out there that the sooner we can get someone back to work, if they're able to get back to work, the faster they will heal. Okay, they will. There's a whole issue about the psychological issues of getting in an accident, staying at home, depression. So it's very important to get people back to work as soon as we can. Lost time accident frequency. So this is where someone actually does lose time from work other than the day of the incident. So So you'll see from 2008 to 2010, we're seeing a steady increase of the lost time accident frequency, but we're still below our peer group average of other large school boards. So I look at this slide and I say, wow, we're still doing okay. However, we're seeing an increase that we need to really dig down to see what's going on. Why is our lost time accidents going up? But you can see also provincially, between 09 and 10 and 11, the provincial average for large school boards is also going up. No lost time accident frequency. This is where we see a lot of our costs. This is more where people are seeking medical care. So if a custodian is, throwing garbage in the bin at night, strains his or her back, and all of a sudden seeks medical aid, maybe they're going to seek chiropractor or physiotherapy, that is an additional cost to the board. We are paying that directly from our WSIB funds. So once again, no lost time accident frequency, it's not as important of a factor as the lost time, but it still gives us an indication that we could be seeing some trends that we need to keep an eye on. So total claim frequency, the number of injuries per 100 staff. So this is your lost time and your medical aids combined. And you can see we were far below the provincial average for 3 years, and then last year our total claim frequency is starting to increase. Provincially they were increasing as well too. So that was just a broad picture of our incident rates, but if we look more specifically at our key or our large groups, employee groups. For the longest time, our custodial and maintenance group were our higher risk group, and we saw, a fairly large amount of incidents in this group. I'm glad to say over the last few years that we've really seen those numbers come down. You can see through the slide, provincially for other large school boards, that this group is still a concern. They're still one of their highest group for incidents. The number one cause of injury for 2010-11 for this group was struck by or against. Now you think about that, the standard nomenclature that they use to classify accidents across North America. So I'll give you an example. An incident could be scraping a desk or a floor. Maybe they're scraping stickers off one of the desks with a utility knife, and their hand slips and they get a cut. That would be an example. An arm caught between an auto scrubber, a piece of equipment that they're using in the hallway, their arm gets stuck between the auto scrubber and the wall. So that would be a contact with. The second type would be slip and falls, which should not be a surprise to anybody. Slips and falls will be every school board in Ontario's number one cause of injury, probably for a long time. So outside, when they are shoveling snow, they're the first ones in the school. They're shoveling the snow at the main entrances. So that would be the major one, would be slip and falls. And floor maintenance. One of the high-risk activities that we see our custodians do in the summertime is stripping floors. And if everyone's seen the process of stripping floors, it is a very high-risk task. It needs to be done. But there are certain control measures we can put into place to help prevent that. And the last for this group was overexertion. So once again, shoveling, throwing garbage out in the bins. Those are type of activities that we see that cause overexertion injuries. Overall, I look at this group. I'm quite proud of our custodial group. They do a great job. They have a very physically demanding job. But we look at their statistics, and they're doing quite well. Educational assistance. We've seen an increase of incidents over the past few years. when I looked at this originally, I was like, wow, we got to look into what's going on here with this group. And when we look into it, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. First one being, the number one cause of injury for EAs is overexertion. Of those injuries, we had 4 related to phys ed. So playing basketball with the kids, twist an ankle. We've had several cases where a basketball has been thrown in someone's face by accident. So we see those type of incidents. We had one serious one where an educational assistant was lifting cases of pop. It was pop delivery day, and they're loading up the vending machines. Can we still do that? Pop and vending machines? So we look at why are they actually doing that task? Should they even be doing that? Body movements and awkward postures. So it could be related to lifting a student or just a bodily reaction, quickly moving out of the way. Slips and falls were the number 2 for this group. Once again, wet floors, tripping over furniture. We had 3 different incidents with EAs tripping over furniture. And the last part would be student aggression. So where student behavior, there's a kick or a bite that would cause an injury. So once again, we're seeing a lot of, between elementary teachers, secondary teachers, and EAs, a lot of sporting related incidents. Elementary teachers, the top 3 slips and falls. We had 14 slips and falls with our elementary teachers. Various wet floors inside, could be recess, out supervising the students, could be gym class. We had 9 slips and falls related to phys ed. Okay, so playing different sports with the students. Second would be struck against. That was an example used about a basketball in the face. Bumped by a student, ran into a soccer post. So a lot of things that I would like to try and prevent, they're out of our control. Secondary teachers, again, struck by against was the number 1 cause of injury, mainly due to phys ed. Overexertion. We had cases where teachers were doing phys ed, jumping up, doing a layup, demonstrating a shot for a student, came back down, twisted their ankle. Dance class, leading to muscle strains. And slips and falls, falling down stairs for no reason, tripped over a smartboard leg, stuff along that line. So once again, we're seeing a lot of different type of incidents that are difficult to control. The other group, that's all other groups of staff, principals, vice principals, could be office administrators, a lump everybody else into that other group, and once again, struck by against, slips and falls, and overexertion are the main types of incidents. So where does that leave us? Why are we seeing an increase? I think it's pretty clear that we're seeing, we're aboard about getting our staff fit, getting our students fit. I'm not about to suggest that we stop phys ed classes, obviously, but we have to look at that. We have to look at it seriously and see if there's anything further we can do. The other challenge we face in occupational health and safety is when they introduce a new piece of legislation. So, for example, workplace violence was introduced 2 years ago. A considerable amount of my time was spent dealing with that one piece of legislation. Meanwhile, if I could have spent that time working on slips and falls, it would have made a difference. It could be, example, a regulation about asbestos comes out. That's going to take a considerable amount of someone's time to deal with that piece of legislation, but you're not going to see any benefits in that in our incident reports or accident reports. You're not going to see any change because our time's being spent on different pieces of legislation that are being introduced. Overall, we're seeing a trend that's going up, but I think we have to keep in mind too, we're seeing a trend provincially where we're staying pretty consistent with what was happening with other large school boards. We do need to work at reducing those rates or controlling them the best we can, while trying to stay flexible enough to allow our teachers and our staff to take part in those activities that we're well known for, QDPE, the whole wellness piece with our staff.
Good.
Questions?
All right, thank you. Trustee Swan.
Through you, Chair. Thank you very much. I just had a question more in regards to one thing that wasn't really mentioned is, I'm very disturbed still that all the amount of claims for elementary teachers, secondary teachers, TAs is going up, custodians even since 08. What portion of this is stress-related illnesses? But this hasn't been mentioned. We hear it out when we're out in the schools. I'm just wondering, that didn't seem to place in the top 3, but is that one of the ones on the increase? Like, what is on the increase, not in the top 3? Has that been analyzed?
Generally speaking, we analyze the top 3 where we need to spend most of our time. I can't say that stress would be a reason for that. We may have the odd claim for stress-related issues, but to say it's on an uprise or if that's a large concern, no.
So we don't track at all where there's a specific area that might be going 50% higher and from one term to the next? Or this company does not track it?
We can track it. We can dig down a little deeper. But what I can say is slips and falls are always going to be there. They're always going to be our number one where we should be spending our time. Overexertion is our next largest type of incident. We need to be spending our time on those areas. I can be up here in 10 years and I will have the same issues again. It'll be slips and falls, overexertion. They'll be the main ones always, where we need to really concentrate on.
I guess my concern was just that if health and wellness related issues, stress related issues, was only at 10% of our claim base, and if it jumped to 30, it's still number 4 or 5, so it's not your top 3. You know, how do we trigger that, or what mechanisms in place to make sure that's followed up on?
Superintendent Gales?
I think we need to be clear about, I think John is talking about stress from physical stress, and I'm not certain you're talking about physical stress.
No, health and wellness related issues.
This is accident-related statistics, so John wouldn't be measuring mental stress, if you like, emotional stress. That would be something through EAP or the other health plans that are in place through the Human Resources Department. And when John's talking about stress, he's talking about strain, muscle strain.
So we don't have claims going
through
WSIB for stress-related illnesses?
No, not through this process. WSIB it's physical, it's accidents, it's not emotional. So I just wanted to clarify that.
No, thank you for clarifying that.
Trustee McCray?
Through you, Chair. So in terms of the increase in these different areas, what are some of the strategies or what are your ideas to try to reduce these?
I think we have to get back to the basics. For example, slips and falls, 2 or 3 years ago we did a big blitz on slips and falls and we reduced them by, it was about 35%, which is, we had a really good year. Mother Nature was actually really good that year too, but we did a big awareness campaign, pushed that out. So we need to get back to those basics, but at the same time, but as new legislation comes out, that takes our time away from where we need to be concentrating on. So that's always the competing factor that we have.
Trustee Swan?
Lastly, through you, Chair. I'm just wondering, do we get another update on EA-related issues, stress, a breakdown like this from the EA side as well?
That's Charlotte.
I'm going to be speaking shortly about attendance and some supports that we have in place for employee attendance. It's going to touch on what you're mentioning, Trustee Swan, and I think it's probably a nice, connection with the information that John's provided with us this evening. So I'm going to be speaking more about, attendance from that point of view as opposed to accident-related attendance.
Any other comments, questions? Trustee Buckland?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One, is there special attention to repeat accidents by the same individual? I'm thinking perhaps a principal who is not coordinated too well and then appears in your 3.2 again and again. Is there some extra mechanism to cope with those problems?
Sorry if I understand you correctly, I couldn't hear you, or Trustee Buckland, I couldn't hear you really directly.
Okay. I'm talking about repeat offenders. You have, 9% on EAs and 3.2 in other. I'm just wondering if there's special attention paid to people who are injuring themselves at the same job in a repeated offense.
Yes, there's people that have pre-existing injuries or have had numerous injuries. In those circumstances, we'd handle them on a one-by-one basis, go in, look at what the issues are, what the concerns are. I've worked very closely with Jeannie in looking at modified work at specific cases.
Okay, I had a second point.
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Trustee Buckland.
Thank you. In your other category, this includes the principals and senior men and so on.
Yes.
Not a very large category, yet you're showing 3.2% of accidents. Is there some accounting for that?
We have to remember that is we're having 3.2 accidents per 100 staff in that group. And that's actually not all our principals, vice principals, office administrators, could be some of our PSSP people. We have seen an increase. Once again, you're going to be looking at, majority would be slips and falls. So it's a group it's a large group. Do we spend as much time on that group as we should? Probably not. However, we are looking at everything to see what we can do to reduce this.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't thinking it was such a large group. Okay, inform me out. Thank you.
Trustee McRae?
Yes, through you, Chair. So, John, I'm kind of trying to read between the lines here, and I was getting a feel that with the number of staff that are covered under the occupational health and safety, which is all of them, what are the human resources that you have available in terms of looking after this piece?
I work with all the different departments. I just don't work on it myself. For example, the facilities department, I work very closely with facilities staff who are directly related, their supervisors for their staff. I work with HR quite a bit as well, team up with HR quite a bit. It is a large portfolio, there's lots to do, but we work with a lot of different groups. It's just not me on my own doing this.
Okay, so, through you, Chair, when, let's say, for example, you made the comment that when new legislation comes and you have to go and focus in on that, who looks after the other piece with the slips and the falls? How does that...
I think we really focus on educating our principals as the supervisors of the site to really be responsible for that. At the end of the day, whether there's a new piece of legislation coming out or not, at the end of the day, it's the principal at that school who's the supervisor. So if we educate our supervisors properly and our managers properly, they should be able to take care of those day-to-day day-to-day things.
Any other comments, questions? Trustee McDonald?
John, other than providing us the information, what's the takeaway from this? I mean, you're telling us that there's some things we've got to pay attention to, there's some things that we should be doing. What are we going to do?
I think we need to keep bringing health and safety back to the forefront. We need to really drill down as an organization on why this is happening, and start getting to the other groups of employees that we don't get to spend a lot of time with educating. So for example, we spent a lot of time with our custodians in the last 3 or 4 years ago. We haven't done that since. So we need to go back to the basics, what we've done 3 or 4 years ago when we had some really good results, and start hammering back at those areas. So it's getting our custodians together, working with them, getting our EAs together and working with our EAs. Educating our principals to deliver this information to their teaching staff at the school, to all the staff at the school. So we've made a lot of strides going in an opposite direction I want to see them, so that's telling me we need to get back to where we were a few years back.
Do you think, though, that the education program that we put in place potentially heightened the awareness, which also increased the number of reports?
Definitely.
As opposed to the number of accidents?
Definitely. You look at when new legislation is introduced, you will see an increase in reporting as well.
So, do you really think that more education is going to prevent, or are we going to get more reports?
I think that more education will help, but I think we're continually going to see an increasing in numbers.
And the reality is that we're never going to be at zero.
I would not be a safety professional if I said I'm not shooting for zero.
Fair enough, but I think it's a reality, right? I mean, out of the number of employees that we have, we're going to have an accident.
Once again, if I was a true safety professional, which I am, it is possible.
Okay. What's the cost?
The cost for?
Shooting for zero.
You have to support the department. There has to be adequate resources in place to do that. So you got factories that could go for zero reportable accidents for a different situation in education, but I would like to think that we can get to zero.
Okay, and I respect your position of being a safety professional, but I think we need to draw a line in the sand and say we're not a factory. I think there's some heavy rules that can be put in place in a factory setting, in a manufacturing type setting. We're an education delivery setting, and things are going to happen. And if we put rules in place to try and strive to zero, what happens to the end of the scale?
I'm not about changing the education outcome and what our goal is as a board. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to support that goal through the departments. So we'll take reasonable steps to do what we can to reduce the accidents the best we can.
Director, do you want to?
Yes, thank you.
Trustee McAllister?
Perhaps I'm going to ask you a difficult question, but you may want to pass on it, but do you feel that you have the resources at hand to do the job that you need to do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Connor. This is an annual event, and we'll look forward to the report for 2011-2012 and seeing progress in all the areas that you think we can make progress in. Thank you. Zero. All right, now move on to the next item, supporting employee attendance. And give the floor to Superintendent of Human Resources, Charlotte Patterson.
Thank you very much, Chair Petersma. This evening I feel that there's a nice connection between the presentation that John just made and what I'm going to be talking about for the next few minutes. I want to talk with you about supporting employee attendance and some of the initiatives and supports that we have in place that assist our employees in being at work every day, ready for the job that they are paid to do. And on this slide, you'll note the crew logo, which of course references our strategic plan. Our big goal of 90%. One of our significant crew projects being wellness and work-life balance, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that in detail, and our new implementation of an automated reporting and replacement system called UCDSB. So let's move along. As John mentioned in his presentation, we want our staff to be well. We want them to be at school working with students to achieve our 90% goal. And so it behooves us to put some supports in place and ensure that our employees have their needs are met to the extent that an organization can do so. And so this is some of the things that we'll be looking at a little bit more closely. Our crew project, Wellness and Work-Life Balance, it provides as it says here, a systematic and integrated approach to wellness programming and services. Basically, it's a contributory shift in the organization where there is a focus on wellness. You know that through our QDPE and our nutrition programs, our student mental health initiative, that there is a focus on wellness in our organization. And so the Wellness and Work-Life Balance project focuses specifically on employees and their wellness, focuses on the organization's wellness, and looks to align the initiatives in the board so that we're getting the best synergy in our efforts so that we can actually achieve what we hope to do. Our workforce is aging. That may not be a surprise to anyone, but it is rather interesting to look at some of the statistics and compare what we know as to be the Canadian average age in workforces and our Upper Canada average. And you can see that from where we've been able to collect data in 2007 and 2011, there is increase over time. That's perhaps not surprising if you think about the fact that this board is experiencing declining enrollment, and for most of our employee groups, the impact of declining enrollment is a loss of jobs, and generally speaking, our job loss affects the most junior people in our organization. And so hence, over time, the age of our organization rises. So there are many people in our organization who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s and quite frankly 70s who make a significant and positive contribution to the improvement of teaching and learning on a daily basis. But there is no doubt that our demographic also poses some challenges and opportunities. Based on the data that we've collected, and we did a major wellness study in 2007, our current focus is in these areas. Mental health, and we have a very strong partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association. For the last 3 years, we've trained many of all of our leaders, our senior team, our principals, our managers, and our union leaders in understanding mental health and how folks who might be experiencing mental health challenges may may present themselves at work, and the kinds of supports that site managers, principals, etc. can provide to these folks when they are in some kind of difficulty. We also are pleased with the alignment with our mental health strategy with the student mental health initiative that's going on, and as well the focus that we have in for our employee groups. Of course, we've had a pretty significant cardiovascular initiative, and we've been able to introduce events that promote cardiovascular wellness. So if you think about Walktober, Walk Around the World, we've got a nutrition campaign that's going to begin very shortly. That's kind of the cardiovascular area is one where you can easily stage events, so what that does is heightens the emphasis on the program or the initiative, but really the Wellness and Work-Life Balance Crew Project is not about events, it's about changing the culture in the organization. We are partnering with the University of Windsor to continue our very good work that we've done locally on musculoskeletal injuries, so particularly in the area of ergonomics. John was mentioning earlier the work that we've done with custodians, purchasing some appropriate equipment that lessens the load for some of the custodians, focusing on our office administrators and other folks who work, people in this board office who work at a computer all day long, making sure that their desk set up for computer work, etc., is ergonomically correct, so that they're not suffering from injuries such as carpal tunnel syndrome, etc., which can be very, very debilitating. Of course, we've recently passed a substance use policies, and we're having to develop a procedure in that regard, and we have an awareness program called Decide, which basically is an education program. Financial issues and also care of the elderly are coming to the forefront these days as well, and with our new Employee and Family Assistance Program, they do offer a comprehensive suite of programs, and there's a lot available on an individual basis online. There's also opportunities to have folks come and provide us with some expertise in that area for small groups and staffs and that sort of thing as well. I'll also say, speaking of partnerships, with respect to care of the elderly, this is a significant challenge for many of our employees, and our access centers throughout the board have been very supportive and assisted us in providing literature and communication, and we include things in our newsletters that basically staff can refer to and find some support for their own personal situation. A lot happens behind the scenes as it relates to supporting employee attendance, and certainly the managers and principals and individual employees, quite frankly, receive good support from the Human Resources Department. We've initiated a new role this year called HR Partner, and they work directly with principals and managers to support these very kinds of situations where we might need to have some crucial conversations with folks to support them and get them back to work and ensure that they're feeling healthy and well when they are at work. I've mentioned employee and family assistance already. I'll just skip up, if I may, to accommodation and return to work program. John touched on this, but under the leadership of Linda Billing in the HR department, Jeannie Atkins, who's at the back of the room with John, and Terry McPherson have done a wonderful job. They're renowned, recognized throughout the province in their very strong approach to accommodation and return to work, and we've been cited by the school board's cooperative as being one of the top boards in the province as it relates to getting folks back to work, and that's a very healthy thing to do. Average sick day utilization. Now these stats for 2009-10, and what we gather from Stats Canada in the education sector. That's a broad sector that includes university, college, and elementary and secondary schools. The average per employee is 13.2 days. In 2009-10, we were sitting at 9.16 days as an average sick day utilization. This graph is provided to us by SBCI. Every year they do a sick leave utilization study. Again, it's 9-10. We will receive 10-11 data in May 2012. So this May we'll receive last year's data. And basically, 47, I think, school boards that participated, and you will see that we are ranked number 14, and this is all employee groups, average number of paid sick days per employee. It's the number I referred to in the previous slide, 9.16. So we average 9.16 sick days for average number of sick days per employee. If we look only at short-term absence, less than 20 days, so we take away the people who had, had to have some surgery, we take away someone who might have had, a sudden illness, heart attack, etc., and they're away for a particular length of time. We're talking about under 20 days. Much better news for Upper Canada. We are sitting at about, I think it's 4.96, just under 5 days per employee, and ranked fifth in the province in that regard. So our short-term utilization is good. Our long-term utilization poses some challenges for us. One of the initiatives that we implemented this year was UCARIS, and it's the Upper Canada Absence Reporting, Replacement and Information System, which is quite a mouthful, so we just call it UCARIS. It's a web-based absence reporting system, and for all employees of the school board. So whenever someone is going to be absent, they inform their principal or manager, and they report their absence either by phone or by computer, and the system tracks their absences and feeds it into our HRIS system, which is PeopleSoft. But in addition to that, it also, if a replacement is required, and that's determined by the principal or the manager, it also secures the replacement for that absent employee. So for instance, if I'm a grade 3 teacher at Naismith Public School and I'm going to be absent, I phone my principal to inform them of that, and he or she decides if there's a replacement required. Generally speaking, if it was a grade 3 teacher, there would be a replacement required. He would give approval for that, and the system would do the calling out. So the principal is no longer spending between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning trying to secure teachers or EAs or office administrators or instructional support monitors, etc., for their school. The system does it for the school. So that's a tremendous reduction in workload first thing in the morning for our principals, and, well, particularly for our principals. The system has also enabled us to understand the participation rates of our occasional rosters, so our occasional teachers, our occasional EAs, our occasional instructional support monitors, our occasional designated early childhood educators, so that we can make sure that we keep our rosters current and fresh, and the people on those lists actually are available to come and work in our schools. So it's been very, very helpful in that regard as well. we've noted 2 bullets here: improved academic programming through increased replacement success. Because our rosters are up to date and well-stocked, if you will, we're able to ensure that there are teachers, qualified teachers, who are in front of the students, working with them, and there is less sort of scurrying around trying to find anyone to come to be the replacement, because we're able to more easily secure them. Lastly, with regard to some of the other features of UCARIS, we're not there yet, but we are working this year with payroll on the elimination of paper timesheets. So that is another workload improvement here administratively in the payroll department, and so we will not require those. Well, we may require them for a very small percentage of our occasional replacement staff, but generally speaking, the paper timesheet will disappear over time. There's 24-hour availability for all of our employees. You can phone any time or use your computer any time to log in and indicate your absence. And here at the board office, we've got a team of folks that support the UCARIS system. I'd like to make mention, if I may, of Chad Brownlee, who is a secondary principal, but he's been working in HR for the last couple of years, and he led the implementation of this project. And Patty McNamee is our attendance coordinator, and she's done a remarkable job of supporting individual employees and principals in the implementation and understanding how to use the system and that sort of thing. And she's also now tasked with the job of analyzing the data now that we have a few months in, and we'll be obviously providing further information as time goes on. That's all.
All right, thank you. Superintendent Patterson. Trustee Swan.
Just a quick one. Thank you very much for that presentation. As I realize this is 0809 information, and the 1011 is going to be presented to us in May, you said?
We will receive the 1011 information in May. This is 910 data.
So when will the 1011 be presented to us?
Well, we would need a little time to review it. I would think probably early in the following school year.
And
this, as a note, is not a standing report. Okay. This was, I forget how we got here, but this was a one-time, so if we're going to want to have it again, then we'd need to request it to come to board.
I'd be interested in seeing it in a report format similar to the WSIB report, because they do tie in, and I'd like to see the 3 years and have an explanation. I don't know how everyone else feels or how I go about this through you, Chair.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Trustee McAllister?
I echo Trustee Swan's comments with regard to that last point. But my question is with regard to the Employee Assistance Program. How accessible is it? What is the usage of that program, and how effective is it?
Through you, Chair, it's very accessible. Again, a telephone call, and as I was explaining, there are many of the resources are online. So we still have the what we would know as the traditional assistance program, where if you are in distress or you need support right away, that is provided. We have providers, whether they be social workers, psychologists, etc., all over the board, and so it's not about having to come to Brockville or having to go to Ottawa. There's a very robust roster of professionals who can support throughout the board. I don't have tonight the data that would describe the usage. What we do receive from we received this from our previous EAP provider, and we will continue to receive it from our new provider, Human Solutions. We get aggregate data Of course, we don't have individual data, that would not be appropriate, but we receive aggregate data, and we would be in a position to share that as well if you so wish.
Any other comments? Trustee McDonald?
Just a comment on the UCARES feature. I know that there was a lot of anxiety and angst among the staff, the school staff, when it was introduced. However, I have heard since it's been introduced, it's been a useful feature, and in fact, it's probably going to save money, primarily in a secondary setting, when there are the ability to have on-calls, those types of things. So it's received, I think, some great support in the field, although it was a little worrisome at the beginning. So I think principals are viewing it now as a positive tool for their toolbox.
Thank you.
Trustee Buckland?
Thank you. Three things. One, I want to ask you about the Upper Canada Absence Report and Replacement Information System. Is there a way of improving it so that it's more relevant by ward?
Through you, Chair. Trustee Buckland, perhaps are you referring to the ability of local schools to access the teachers or the other replacement staff that they require?
Yes, could you make it more relevant to local schools, thinking territorially and geographically?
Yes, we can do that, and we actually do that. Excuse me. In some of areas of our board, we may have not as many, I'll say, technology teachers on the roster, and so we make an effort to do some interviewing and access further additional teachers to put on there. So we do have the ability to respond to a need in a local area.
All right, thank you. Another point, Mr. Chairman, was the paid sick leave. Now, I know students are not covered by this, and trustees are not covered. Is there anyone else? I mean, is there an unpaid sick leave utilization study by our employees? If, for example, I cut myself with a chainsaw as an employee, and I'm going to be on this sick leave, right?
Right.
Or for janitor trips or a golf course, then, I mean, so is there any category?
Well, through you, Chair, there are other absences that we would be recording beyond paid sick leave. Yeah, so for instance, we would provide through collective agreement and terms and conditions, there are provisions to take bereavement leave, to be released for jury duty, illness in the family, this sort of thing. So those are other paid leaves that we provide. So this is sick leave. Now, the other thing I might say is that we do have employees who exhaust their sick leave bank, and then there obviously are other measures that we need to take to either support that employee or deal with the employee because they're taking sick leave, but they've got nothing left in their bank to use.
Just to clarify that for myself, there would be no employee who is off work through accident or illness who would not get some paid sick leave.
We have employees who, when they exhaust their bank, they're no longer paid.
Yeah, but in the beginning they would be eligible for it.
Yes.
And the third thing is, I congratulate you, you are focusing on care of the elderly, although it is number 6. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, not a prioritized list.
Oh, it's so smart.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Garrow?
No.
Oh, sorry, Trustee Swan?
I just wanted to know, through you, Chair, if we could get a copy of the report or presentation somewhere later in the year.
So you're looking at the, if I jotted down some notes from your early comment, you're looking at having this report yearly, you're also looking at showing some 3-year trend data and format to look more like John O'Connor's report.
Yeah, I actually think the two kind of go side by side very nicely, and perhaps next year they could be side by side, but for now, if we could just kind of get a synopsis when they have the time to get it together.
Okay, so we'll look at that yearly. I think that there's, we'll check whether that would be appropriate to put the two, because there are certain reporting requirements on the one, legal reporting requirements. Anyhow, we'll have that put on an agenda at the same time as the health and safety report. Trustee McDonald?
I go back to my previous questions with trustees. When we ask for reports, what do we want to achieve by getting the information? If it's just strictly information, having it as an agenda item, I'm not certain that we serving a good purpose, because we've heard other staff in the past talk about the availability of resources and the time associated to do the different If we have this information, what are we prepared to do with it? Are we prepared to allocate more or, I guess more importantly, is there anything that we can do about it? I mean, people are entitled to be off sick. Are we willing to put more money into trying to make sure they're not off sick? I think we need to make sure that we ask those questions of ourselves before we ask staff for information. And I have no problem if that's the will of the board, but we've tasked staff with a number of different functions, and I want to make sure that what we're asking them to do is valuable in performing a function that we think is going to be beneficial to us down the road. If it's just for information, I think we need to ask ourselves that.
Trustee Carter?
I think it's valuable information for us in our communities when we hear rumors going around about teacher absence, and it might be much worse in the rumor than it is in actual. So we've got information that would help us with answering when we're approached with those kinds of questions. That would be one reason why I'd like to have the data.
Trustee Swan?
And the second reason I think is the health and wellness of our employees is one of our number one priorities. And the tie-in between the WSIB, we are getting this report already from a third party, so I'm just asking for a presentation tying in the report that's coming into the board already. I have to tie in with the WSIB one.
Any other comments? Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. I think we've got to be very careful if we hear rumors in our community that we don't look to have information come to the board to try and resolve individual issues or individual rumors. That's a very dangerous slope, and a slippery slope, if I may say, because an individual issue in a community may not be represented within a whole report that's coming before the board. So I think that's not something. I agree wellness is important. It certainly is a priority within our strategic plan. But this is reporting on what's happened. And what are we going to do with the information when we get it? And that's why I keep coming back to. If we're not prepared to do anything, we're just tasking staff to give us information. If it's just simply reading information that we want, then that's okay. I can support that. But I think there's another way that we can ensure that we have adequate resources deployed within our strategic plan, as opposed to seeing the trend of people off on sick leave, whether it be associated to mental health issues, whatever the case might be. And I'm not sure that we get that breakdown the way that we're looking. So I'm not really in favor. I'm not in favor, I'll be honest with you, of the WSIB coming to us, because what does it do? What does it tell us? It tells us that we have accidents. What are we going to do about it? We haven't heard from staff what we're going to do about it. If we're not prepared to do anything different, why do we get the information? it's a report that is supposed to come to us, and I challenge that every year about why we need to have this information. If it's simply an information package that has to be handed out to us, that's great. But I just don't know that we make any difference. We hear this report year after year, we do nothing.
Okay, I think that the information flow, and are you questioning whether it needs to come to board, or are you questioning whether it needs to be written at all?
Yeah, written at all.
Okay. I think that, the accumulation of the data to some extent is being done already anyway. But I think too that as we look at these things, there's an opportunity for us to look at our conversations around creating those metrics on the strategic plan to see how well we're doing. And certainly some of this data is going to provide us signals as to the overall success or lack of in our activities. So I think that it can be part of that conversation. For now, I'm going to leave it unless there are others that believe that support David. I'm going to leave it on for now to come back to us next year. Whether it comes to the board table or not, or just is sent to trustees as information, and should they find that there is something that they wish to discuss at the board table, they can bring it forward. We can discuss that at a later time. Trustee McAllister?
I think one point that we haven't really concentrated on is the fact that we are talking about wellness, and it is 25% of our strategic plan, and I think it's a good opportunity to at least take a good look at that aspect of our strategic plan.
Sure. So that ties back into what I was saying about creating the metrics, so that's an ongoing conversation. Any other comments? Director?
We use this information all the time. It helps us make decisions in the schools. And you heard John speak earlier that it wasn't just a slip that he used there, and that wasn't a pun intended. The fact is that a couple of years ago, we had an icy winter like this, and we really went at yak tracks. We wanted every single teacher, elementary on duty, every custodian using them, and you may remember we had them available for purchase by the trustees as well. As John has said, sometimes it's just good fortune. A winter with not too much snow, we don't have as many slips and falls as you go through. The other piece that Charlotte's brought was critical to examine what UCARIS has done. It's given our principals more up-to-date information on patterns and trends of their own absences of potentially people in their staff. And what it's helping principals do is determine with their staff the appropriateness of some of the decisions on why they're absent, and dealing with an issue that is certainly important to principals, important to management, is the belief that somehow absence is an entitlement. And that's an issue I thought that Trustee Buckland was going at, was that do we have some people who believe that 20 days is theirs to take every single year? And as you see, we don't have many, but there are some. So this information by staff is very important, and individual principals to deal with supervision of our own staff. This is a critical issue to, and I think if trustees wants to dig in deeper, we certainly can do this. But I think this, Trustee McDonald, you have to ask the good question. Why do you want it? We know why we want it in individual places. Why does this table want it? Would be for policy, the set policy. I think that's the important part.
Trustee McDonald?
And you cleared it up at the end, and I think it's important that the differentiating factor is that it's important for staff to have the detailed information, because absenteeism is really a responsibility of the supervisor. If there's a chronic issue of absenteeism, those kinds of things, then we have to deal with it. That's an issue for administration. In my view, not an issue for the Board of Trustees. So, I'm not saying you shouldn't track it. I'm just indicating that I don't necessarily agree that the report has to come to us. And that was my statement. So I support the fact that staff use the information on a preventative type measure or a performance enhancement measurement management. type basis.
I think the one bit of information that's missing from this report that would be useful is, and I think help with the relevance factor for us, is the impact on the budget of absences. And, obviously, I would think that if we can reduce the number of absences, then that frees up resources for something else. So I would think that that would be good data to have in the future. Trustee Garrow.
Yeah, I just thought maybe another aspect through you, Chair, would be the effect, and John spoke to it, on the students. Absenteeism, for whatever reason, has an effect on students, and especially if you're looking at special education, special needs, and what have you. So I think staff and what have you, definitely the administration, they need to know this, because parents need to know this too, that this has an effect on students.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, Superintendent Patterson. Move on now to board-wide communication system. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. So just to pick up on something that occurred earlier with Microsoft, certainly we've heard of an opportunity that we can now have the ability to communicate with our students, and moving forward it sounds like there's an opportunity for us to communicate with parents. That access is limited to email, based on Microsoft, I think. What I was looking at and what I was referring to in this particular piece is more of an integrated type system approach, so that it would be a phone call, a text message, an email. The phone call would be to more than one phone number if the line's not answered. It would also include an opportunity to have the information posted into social media sites. And the reason I bring this up is that for a number of years I've talked about this, and I've looked at this. There are a number of different companies that provide this service. And what it allows you to do, and some schools have that right now. Most of our, I would say, secondary schools more so than elementary schools. And what this system would do is it would allow us to send district-wide communications to parents. It would also allow us to do school-wide communication to parents, class communication to parents, right down into a band communication or a sports team. It also allows us to have a response on an emergency basis. If we have a critical incident at a school, power goes out, or we've got fire trucks lined up in front of the school, we can instantly send a message to parents saying, here's what's happening at your school, your children are safe, there's no need to worry, we will provide you with further updates in so many minutes, so many hours, so whatever the case might be. Right now, the panic hits when there's a critical incident or an apparent critical incident at a school, and all the parents know is that there's a fire truck or a police car parked in front of the school, or a number of police or fire trucks parked in front of the school. And getting the information out has been relied upon a newsletter, a school letter going home the day after, that day, whatever the case might be. I think in the age of technology, there's an opportunity for us to look at making sure that we can communicate with our parents, our students, primarily, I guess, in a secondary level, with information that's useful, upcoming events, important information that's happening that particular day. And when I look at this, when I talk to the companies that provide this service, it's a minimal cost. It's usually on a per capita basis, so it's a charge per student. But what we would be doing is also eliminating what's in our existing schools, so our schools don't have to pay for it. We would pay for that out of our district budget, allowing our schools to have access to it and send messages home to their system, attendance messages, whatever the case might be. Most of these companies now have the ability to also translate. So we can send a message, and a personalized message. It doesn't have to be a robot-type message being sent out. It's a personalized message being sent out, recorded by whomever, the principal, the teacher, the director, for that matter, on the first day back to school. And then we can also have the opportunity with the multicultural needs that we have in our community. We can send a message home to our First Nation students in a language that parents will be able to understand. We have a number of multicultural students in the Cornwall and Prescott area, and certainly in other areas that will have Tamil and Hindu that they need to understand what's happening at the school. And a school letter just doesn't do it, because we don't translate them. We just send it out. It's one blast. We've heard of the issues of students not wanting to take home or forgetting to take home the ever-popular agenda. Well, we have the ability to send a message to our parents by email, by phone, by text, whatever the case may be. And that, assists, augments the newsletter, the agenda, those kinds of things. I think it's in a time now for us to actually look at something like this. And I'm not suggesting a particular company. I'm just saying that I'd like to be able to bring it forward, and perhaps we look at it during the budget process. So at least we have the information. We can make a decision within the budget talks, discussions, or whether it's something we want to include or not. I think it's a system that would be above the rest of our counterparts in Eastern Ontario, but certainly something that would be very affordable for us once we actually go out and begin the research.
Thank you. Just for clarification, Mr. Hobbs, the my UCDSB.ca is a student communication system, right? At this time, it does not include parents.
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Trustee McAllister.
I tend to agree with Trustee McDonald's suggestion here. I do believe that the newsletter is passé almost, in that it's not immediate enough in terms of an instance where there is a crisis in the school. And as an example, I can point to Gananoque Intermediate Secondary School, where Principal Boston started his own blog and his own Twitter, and it has grown, I think, exponentially, such that whenever there was a potentially serious threat in the fall at that school, the word spread very, very quickly. But I think the important thing here is that parents receive the message in the manner in which they are most comfortable. Now, here's where I might differ with you, Trustee McDonald, and that is that I'm not particularly fond of system-wide systems, because I think anything that is school-based is more effective. And if we can get our principals doing similar work to Principal Boston, that might be a better approach. But I'm certainly willing to examine this further. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Trustee McDonald?
And I just to Trustee McAllister's point, most of the companies have an interface with the parents, so they can go in and choose the method that they want to receive the information, and then they can choose multiple messages. So if they wanted to have a text and an email and a phone call, whatever the case may be, and they would have multiple phone numbers as well. So in the event that mom goes first, dad goes second, and then grandma, grandpa is third if there's no answering. So and I'm not advocating that we send system messages every day. We have the ability to do it. It's more of if we wanted to send something on the first day of school, welcome to school, whatever the case may be, it's more directly related to the school, because not all schools can afford it. So some schools, mostly secondary schools, have it in place, but if we have it from a system-wide, we have the ability to do that upper-level message, but we also have the ability to drill down into a class or a specific team, and I think that's the beauty of that type of system, and it's available for every school.
Trustee Swan?
Well, I had spoke to you, Chair Petersma, about this during when all the hydro blackouts were happening in my area. I think we had about 6, and one day I tried to contact my schools, and I couldn't reach. I think I only reached one principal, and most of my phone numbers were on my internet, which also was on charge. My BlackBerry was in charge because I wasn't prepared for these blackouts. And I think in cases of emergency planning, lockdown, to communicate with parents. And as Trustee Kirtner said earlier, for parents that don't have internet, that's kind of building a bridge there for them too, because they can be reached by phone. And let's say a parent can't get to a school and they're worried because the school has no hydro. They don't know
is my child okay? Are they sending them home? Are water main broken in elementary school? What's happening to my child? And if the parent can't get through for some reason,
I just think it's very important to implement a system like this.
Trustee McMillan?
I think, through you, Chair, I think when we look at our strategic plan and we look at communication and the way we want to move that forward, I think this is absolutely critical part of moving that part of the strategic plan forward with communicating with parents. So I support the idea in general that we should look at a way of probably becoming much more effective in the way we communicate with parents in all ways, but certainly in times of crisis.
Can I make
Trustee McPherson?
Yes, I've been sitting here quite a while listening to, and I'm just trying to get my head around this. I need to remind you that there are parts of our board that do not have access to internet. And for a great many of those communities, the letter home is the only way of communicating. Simply, there's certain physical barriers in place that prevent high-speed internet from getting into some districts. And I also, referring back to A, the system that we're currently using, and B, the new system that is supposedly coming with advancements with the Microsoft Alliance, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that we're asking for here. And if you're going to communicate, sometimes the letter home from the class is the one that the parents take out of the backpack. So what are we looking for here?
Trustee McDonald, do you want to speak to the fact that much of the communication would be sent not by internet connection?
Yeah, Trustee McPherson, most of the communication is by phone in typical other school districts. Some parents have chosen to receive it by email or text, but typically it's a phone call. And similar to what we have in our high schools, where high schools would report absences. Your child, whatever, was not in period 4 today. That type of a thing, robotic type message. This system would allow us to have a teacher configure a message on her own phone, online, recorded, and sent out to all her parents in her class. And that message can be about a test tomorrow. It can be about what's happening leading up to a project that's due in a month, whatever the case might be. So from a school level, it could be a class message. It can be a school message about an emergency situation that's occurring, informing parents that something has happened, but reassuring parents, more importantly, that all their children are safe. That's a number of the features associated to it.
And text messaging doesn't require internet access. It's sent via the phone, the mobile system. Trustee McPherson?
Well, I noticed some of my children's teachers, if you did not know your homework assignment, all you did was call the school, punched in their whatever number it was to get to their mailbox, and they would leave an announcement of the evening's homework assignment. I've also seen teachers establishing Facebook pages. A little while ago here we talked about embracing the social media. So, is this to be a new development or simply a reworking of some of our existing resources?
Well, Trustee McPherson, there are a number of schools that pay right now on an annual basis, probably in the neighborhood of about $2,000 to $3,000 a year to have this type of service. I think the system that we would look at system-wide would probably save us money. Because if we add up all the schools, what they're paying for that actually have this service, we could probably do it far cheaper and get every school assigned to it. I'm not suggesting that it be used to send home a homework assignment on a daily basis. It's an example of the types of messages that can be sent. Some schools will use it more effectively than others, but the tool will be there for however a principal, a teacher, a school decides how to use it. but more importantly, it's there on those emergency situations that we don't have today.
Any other, Director?
First of all, I really support this for a couple of reasons. We have about 13 schools, as Trustee McDonald's aware right now, that use automated phone system, the telephone system, to send out information from inclement weather to the soccer team's not running, or the soccer team is going, or the play is on, or whatever. And these are good things that are going on, and we have in Canada and in the United States a number of companies that provide the service. The piece that as I've got into meeting with these companies to talk about this, is that particularly in light of the issues of suicide and mental health and other situations, we as a school system and school systems, we push that information in all kinds of ways, but what we don't do is take information in real well. And we have, sometimes we have safe school arrival programs where someone's listening to the phone saying so forth. But there are methodologies out there, and I met with two different companies that have a methodology that can work with us that says, well, one, we can, for example, the situation again, John, that you brought up with that immediately through the principal then for his community with the company would go at face mail, Twitter, all those things. And he'd only have to put it in once, and then it would have hit and go all those directions. Plus, every parent who wanted to receive that, updated quickly. And as Dave has described, it could be a text format to others and a phone call to others as you go through. But what I'm looking for, and the companies have told me that we can have it. In fact, one company told me they'd provide it free to us if we would test it. Is that, let's say there was a problem in the school that the principal or so wasn't aware of, that there was a child being bullied by a group of kids and didn't know how to report this and felt that maybe the teacher they told it to hadn't told so-and-so, that they have created a system where they would have a hotline created where you could make a phone call, anonymous phone call, or an anonymous email going through to the principal or the person in the school identified with those issues on Safe School that would receive that almost immediately, so that down the hallway, if you had a situation where someone was being bullied, it would get to the right place in a timely fashion so that action can be taken. So I think this is something that we should examine, but I think not just to push in information, I think we have to become sensitive to taking in information as well. And I think that tied in with our mental health committee, we might be looking at a campaign to raise awareness to not be quiet or to look the other way. But it may be a fridge magnet that goes out with every single home, may go out with these, this is a way to make sure you're touching. These are things we should be looking at, saying we'll tie in with a number of our initiatives. When it goes to one of our, we know this through 1,000 by 2,000, David, that our number one issue still to all of our community stakeholders is effective communication. And that's our C, that continues to be, even with all the work that we put into this, the money we've spent, we've got to communicate more effectively. I like the way that Chris handled that tough situation, that he's already got already a load of all the parents how they want to receive information. He was able to do it very quickly. But that shouldn't come just because one principal has a really good skill set. That should become the state of the art for every one of our schools. So I support this, and I think our senior team is right behind examining this and getting on board.
Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. So just to follow up on that, certainly that's an important piece, and I would totally agree with the importance of receiving information back. And now, since I've started to research this, there's been some evolution. Some of the companies that actually used to only provide that outgoing message type service now have the ability to have survey information attached to that. So we're going to make a phone call to 15 families tonight about satisfaction in your school. And that's just throwing that out. Well, they have the ability to ask those questions, and by a keypad touch, they have the response back to us. A number of these companies also have the ability to have that incoming line anonymously to say, here's an issue. Just to add to that and augment to that, I've had some discussion with Crime Stoppers and SDNG. And Crime Stoppers have wanted to find ways to partner with schools in a greater way for a number of years. And Crime Stoppers, when we think about it, it's, I saw this guy in the neighborhood breaking that window. But when I asked that question of the people involved with Crime Stoppers, and I said, but, if you want to partner with the school, you know, our issues are bullying related or issues around those kinds of things. And they said, well, to some degree, they get called on some of these issues anyways. And so they want to find a way that if they can partner with a school board, and I'm not talking for all Crime Stoppers because they are individual areas, but certainly in SD&G, they're interested in potentially partnering with the school board and saying, you know what, our number is published on a regular basis, the tips line. And if we make this information available to your students saying, we want to know of any crimes that are committed within your schools, we want to know if there's issues that concern your safety, you can use this tips line. And it's a partnership that would allow us to be able to feed the information back, and it's all done anonymously from Crime Stoppers. So those are things that I think we should explore as well. And I think when we go out and do this research about service providers who can do the messaging type, I don't think we need to restrict it only to... I want to make sure that we get the right message out first and look at other avenues about how we can receive information back in. So I don't want to hinder the opportunities that some of the companies have about getting information out. I think we need to explore further some of those anonymous tip line type scenarios that we can have to make sure our students are safe.
Any other comments? Is anybody opposed to having administration look into this?
I just want them to bring it back.
I don't know.
No? So I ask that you bring back some information to us on it. April. How would you like to see this?
Yeah, I think April, that way we have an opportunity to discuss it through budget. So we have the information, this is my thought. We have the information, we let it sink in, we know the impact from a financial dollar, potentially at that time, and then we can include it, not include it, phase it in, whatever the case might be, through budget process.
Okay. All right, thank you, Trustee McDonald. Superintendent Gales, you want to tell us about the revised budget estimates? Please.
Very exciting.
We knew that. That's why we put you at the end.
Where is it?
He has slides too.
Sadly, there's only a few. The first slide in front of you is, and the important point here to notice, is this is the consolidated statement of operations projected for 2011 and 12. So this is a projection. If this projection is exactly accurate, we would have an in-year deficit of $800,000. So what does that mean? Well, that consolidated statement includes school funds, it includes Upper Canada Leger Centre, Champions for Kids, but more importantly, it includes PSAB adjustments. Now, what are the PSAB adjustments? The PSAB adjustments are the projected cost from now until they occur for vacations that have been earned, for sick days that have been earned. In other words, the cost of expenses that we won't really pay out for years and years to come are included in there. Now you ask, why are they there? That's what PSAB requires. Those are the accounting standards that are required. And so, taking a look at the consolidated statement of operations, what's changed? Well, grants for student needs have gone up a little bit because of enrollment increases, and as you can see, we spent more than was allocated, plus that increase on teacher salaries, instructional costs, basically teacher salaries. We also have some increases in pupil accommodation, and so that means that there is more money going toward projects in the facilities department. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because this next slide is really the important page. And if you are to take a look at this page, you will see the green line at the top called Total Operating Accumulated Surplus. And what this says, while we have an in-year deficit, our accumulated surplus available for compliance has gone up by $1 million. So in other words, this board is in very good shape today financially. And that's the important message you need to take away from this. Because the PSAB adjustments are in the bottom of this page, and it's that first line that explains the available for compliance. And number 3, the total accumulated surplus deficit available for compliance is growing, as you can see by that middle column, by $920,000. So the board is in good financial shape as we move into what promises to be a difficult period in the years ahead. And that, trustees, is the report as succinctly as I can make it. The final slide just simply states that we are compliant in all aspects as we submitted this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
I have just one, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Trustee McPherson.
What is the Lancer Center? I may have missed it when Rick was doing the presentation.
The Lancer Center is actually the community facility at Rothwell-Osnabrück High School. At the time it was built in the 90s, it was named the Lancer Center. That was the name of their school team, and there was a contribution from the community to pay for that, and there is a contract with the community that allows them usage after school hours. And what we do is we charge them for the usage, and it's accumulated, or a portion of it is accumulated as a reserve for repairs to that facility. And so at the moment, I believe that the Facilities Department has or will replace some of the roof in that facility now that it's sort of 20 years old.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Do we need to do anything official with this, or just...
No, it is a requirement in our operational review that the board is made aware of the outcome of our revised estimates. Okay. And so that has been accomplished.
All right, thank you, Superintendent of Business Rick Gales. Good news. You may as well stay up there.
I have to read the next part, too.
Yeah. Trustees are commenting on the paradox here that we're in good financial shape, but you need to borrow money.
Interesting. This is actually a project funded by the ministry, and as all ministry capital projects, the money has to be borrowed through debentures, which are funded. And there's a whole process for this, and you're familiar with it from having seen it last year. And you'll recall the legal documents that are a quarter of an inch thick, probably. So the outcome is that the board is going to debenture these projects, $2.1 million. The lion's share of it, $1.2 million, is for land expropriation, demolition, and portions of Bentley Kill Collegiate, which were finished during the year. And the balance are other projects funded by the ministry, about $900,000. Good places to learn. So those are sort of a series of upgrades to schools completed by the Facilities Department.
Any other questions?
Next board meeting, the board will be asked to approve the borrowing bylaw for these projects. And this is very similar to last year, and it will be very similar next year as well.
Great. Okay, well, we'll just send this on to the board. Everybody looks enthused. Thank you. Okay. Here I thought I was going to need a motion to extend. Got to the end. Anything else? No? What's that?
Something.
You do. You're not on the agenda, you know that. You have to wait 2 weeks.
I know.
Where's it say? Where's it say that?
Right here.
It does not say that.
Well, it does now.
All right, Director.
First of all, I'd like to thank Trustee McAllister, Trustee Parker, and yourself, and Trustee McMillan for being at the crew session today with our principals and lead teachers across our jurisdiction. Your attendance there sends a valuable message to our teachers that you value the Teaching for Learning agenda and that the board is focused on teaching for learning, so thank you for that. And I have said many times that some of the best PD trustees can get is joining their principals in sessions like that, so thank you for being there. On a different note, David Belfour, who's all recognized as the Extra Mile Award winner in our system, and recently you may have also discovered that we have an employee in our system who was recognized as Teacher of the Year with SMART-related technology. Well, one of the first persons she ever worked with was David Belfour with a young boy. His name is Braden Barr at the school. Braden Barr was diagnosed as a variety of different issues and was nonverbal when he entered school. When we began the process with the SMART technology, you won't believe this, he started to talk. He'd chosen to be nonverbal. In fact, in different parts of the spectrum, he's gifted. And as you go through, and what's happened, I've been in the classroom where he's come up to me and talked to me, and then he can make words he can spell and so forth, and it's just a wonderful situation where an outstanding teacher has connected young men to technology, and where we had the Globe and Mail for 2 days in the school, telling the story, and they had their different people in there. The writer Anne McElroy was in the school, and she was very impressed with what's going on at Chimo. Very impressed with the school, but we shouldn't be surprised that in Wayne Hulley's book, he recognized Chimo as an outstanding school to visit, and he recognized one of the top 27 schools of the 97 schools that he'd been involved in his study. It will be in Saturday's Globe and Mail, and you can never tell until the story's written what it's going to say, but the Dave Belfour, who was at the session today, came over to speak to me and said that you probably knew they were in. I didn't know that they were in, and he said, I'm hoping there's a real good story, but he said she left very, very impressed with his classroom and the school, so don't let the Globe and Mail go too far on the weekend. Make sure you get Saturday's edition. Her name is Anne McElroy, who is writing the article right now. Thank you. I hope that was worthwhile, Mr. Chair.
We'll reserve judgment, perhaps. Motion to adjourn. Trustee McMillan, Trustee Karkner. Before I call for the vote, just a reminder that Valentine's Day is coming up, and hope everybody has a great celebration, and of those of you that may have forgotten, mark it in your calendar now. All in favor? Opposed? Let's go. See you in a couple weeks. Thanks, everybody.